So how do you stay out of survival?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the question.
Stay out of it.
How do you stay out of survival? Because living in stress is living in survival. And stress is created when you can't predict something, you can't control something, or you have the perception that something's going to get worse. And there's an alarm system that immediately is built into our biology that causes us to get prepared for that threat or that danger. And that arousal then is an awakening, and the brain goes into the super alert state. And when we're in that state, now all of our attention is on our body, all of our attention is on our environment, all of our attention is on time, separation, right? So now we got to play by the rules of Newtonian physics, and that means you got to try harder, you got to work harder, you got to do something, you got to cheat, you got to steal, you got to do whatever a person does when they're in survival to take away the lack of what they're not having. And it could be anything for people, and it explains a lot of human behavior, because in that state of stress, in that state of survival, nobody's important but you.
Mm-hmm.
You become very self-involved, very self-indulgent. It's all about self. And then there's a story that goes along with that. There's no easy answer for the person who's lost everything except get over the emotion. Because if you can't get over the emotion, you can't get past that problem. And justified or not, valid or not, the only person that those chemicals, those emotions are hurting are you. And it's dysregulating your autonomic nervous system. And people become addicted to the arousal of those emotions. And just like anything, you can have a bad trip or an overdose, and you could actually knock your brain and body out of balance just by thinking. Literally, you become addicted to your own thoughts. And the long-term effects of that push the genetic buttons that create disease. Those emotions that you're feeling, like anger and aggression and frustration and impatience and fear and anxiety and resentment and jealousy and envy and insecurity, guilt and shame, hopelessness, powerlessness, all of those emotions are the emotions that are derived from the hormones of stress. The biological effects keep every cell in the body in an emergency mode.
Wow.
Every cell is squandering all of its energy for the threat or danger in its outer world. So keep that up for a period of time, there's no energy to heal. There's no energy to create, there's no energy for long-term building projects in the body, because when you're living in emergency, it's not a time to create. So the body begins to break down. So breaking that conditioning process and having a person sit with themselves for a period of time where they're not thinking about their cell phone or their TikTok or their social media or their texts, and they get beyond all the people in their life, all the things that they have to think about, all the places they need to go. If they could quiet down their brain and stop thinking in that way, after a period of time, their biology begins to change, and they naturally no longer activate those same hormonal centers that make them feel those emotions. And if they inhibit that, energy actually naturally moves into their heart. It just goes right up in there, and the heart's the creative center. And the heart, the moment energy moves into the heart, it starts beating orderly instead of disorderly. When it's in stress, it's resentment and impatience, just beating disorderly. Now the heart can beat. Now it's got energy, and it begins to inform the brain. It resets the baseline in the chemical brain, the limbic brain. It tells the brain the trauma's over. Its past is over. And it tells the brain to create. Stop living in survival now, start creating. And the person starts thinking in different brainwave patterns. They're naturally creative. Turns out if you do that for a period of time, you can upregulate genes, just like you downregulated genes from feeling those other emotions. Trade those emotions for those elevated emotions, and you actually change your gene expression ahead of the environment. And if the environment signals the gene, and it does, and the end product of an experience in an environment is an emotion, and you're feeling that emotion, you're signaling genes ahead of your environment. And the body's literally changing in that moment. Do that for 7 days, and your body will look like it's living in a whole new environment.
Wow.
That's what our data shows.